냥지 젬버 쫀던 닝미장 존는 호놈 쳔보는 가겠다 바커터건 천도 슈르물도 돈다 티지 잔라 셴츠로 내전르 워스니 장건 자버트 기브션노일라르만 지금 방조자라 소란도 공주 도반포로 신지로 공주 도반포로 신지
The answer past, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in billions of eons, and now you see it, hear it, receive it, and uphold it, and vow to fathom Tathagata's true meaning. In order to liberate all sentient beings, let us generate the supreme bodhicitta. Let us begin our class on the Mahayana Vaipulya Sutra of Total Retention. Today, the content of the class may ward off people because it could generate some fear for people, especially there are people who probably had already made the negative karma or created negative karma of slandering the Dharma, and that would create some difficulties in the rebirth into the Sukhavati without confessing the karmic fruition would be quite horrid. Whichever way, I really encourage all of you to look at the content and reflect upon yourself. If you indeed had made such misconduct, you have to confess. As I said a few days ago, according to Pansuk Rinpoche's teachings, after this sutra, after studying the sutra and with the blessings of the sutra, it could purify the misdeeds of slandering the Dharma from the past. But how about, are you going to ever create any of the misdeeds of slandering the Dharma or abandoning the Dharma? Some of those conducts would be difficult. If I were to say that never ever to make such misconduct again, sometimes it would be difficult. Especially there are places there are some very minor and subtle actions that's very easy to violate. So I really encourage you to look into the content and contemplate again and again. Some of those are not taught by me, rather those are taught by the Buddha Shakyamuni himself. All the teachings of the karma are taught by the Buddha himself. If you were to feel quite doubtful about my teaching, you can raise up your hand and tell me, stop teaching. This is wrong. Just like when the Western teachers are giving classes, the students would have all kinds of postures and all kinds of situations, and the teachers don't really pay attention. They would feel that, well, you can listen if you want to. And when I first began my speech to the Westerners, I really don't feel very comfortable with their attitude. I really wanted to scold them on their attitude, but after a while I slowly understood that's how they are, that's how they carry themselves. And I think that whenever you go to other schools and give teachings, you should be prepared, because they're not like us. They don't really follow the rules of listening to the Dharma. They don't follow this conduct. They don't look at you with a smiling expression or with the kind of gaze of engagement. In fact, they're not like that. They can do all kinds of things. Anyhow, as previously stated, Shakyamuni Buddha said that he would give teachings in the worlds of the 10 directions, and each of the sentient beings in those worlds, and they would see that there would be Shakyamuni Buddha appearing in front of each of them, giving them teachings individually. This is the common understanding and a common experience throughout the listening and teaching. There are some foolish people who would slander the Dharma, and those people will be reborn in the 3 lower realms. And the Buddha told to Maitreya, saying, Ajita, you should protect the teachings of the Tathagata and give teachings to the sentient beings with skillful means in order to benefit them. So that's the class, that's the content from last week. And now 20 Manjushri along with 20 bodhisattvas. But in the Tibetan version, there are 23 bodhisattvas, and according to the Dhammarakshas version, there are 21 bodhisattvas. But according to the Vinitaruchi's version, the version that we're looking at, there are 21 bodhisattvas, including Manjushri. So over here it says that then Bodhisattva Mahasattva, including Manjushri, the youth, fortunate light, equality bodhisattva, and along with 20 bodhisattvas. The Dhammarakshas version is a little bit different than the Vinitaruchi and the Tibetan version. It says that the Dhammarakshas version says that Manjushri told the 20 bodhisattvas and then talked to the Buddha. Some of the versions are a little bit different. The translations or the versions are a little bit different. And the orders of the names are a little bit different. Sometimes the names are a little bit different. Anyhow, there are the bodhisattvas, for example, the Manjushri, the youth, fortunate light, equality bodhisattva, no doubt bodhisattva, definite resolve bodhisattva, wonder mind, open intellect bodhisattva, radiance bodhisattva, joyful king bodhisattva, fearless bodhisattva, thoughts reaching boundless Buddha lands bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara bodhisattva. According to Dhammarakshas version, the translation is a little bit different on that one. And then fragrant elephant bodhisattva, annihilating all evil karma bodhisattva, abiding in samadhi bodhisattva, 100,000 merits adorned bodhisattva, wonderful tone heard afar bodhisattva, all knowledge unforgotten bodhisattva, great name shaking jewel banner adorned bodhisattva, seeking our dharma bodhisattva, abiding in the Buddha state bodhisattva, moonlight adorned bodhisattva, and a great multitude in all worlds adorned bodhisattva. So there are 20 of them. They all said to the Buddha, over here, they're on one hand repeating what the Buddha said, on the other they're repeating the Buddha's Vajra words, because the Buddha said that to each of the sentient beings the Buddha will manifest in front of each of them and then turn the Dharma wheel. When the Buddha gives teachings to the Mandimis, when the Buddha gives teachings like such to the Mandimis, we would generate doubt. It isn't really true because we have never really seen it. But the Buddha's words are then confirmed by the great bodhisattvas, because on one hand their aspirations are pure, on the other, because of the supreme aspiration of the Buddha, the 21 bodhisattvas had all witnessed that. And that is why the bodhisattvas said that indeed, the world honored one, indeed, truly as your Holiness says, when we passed the Buddha lands in the east, which were as numerous as the sands of the 60 Ganges rivers, and reverently made obeisance to the Buddhas. There we saw only Shakyamuni Buddha appearing in every world. Just like the worldly teachers would say that, well, I have many students. Maybe at the beginning you don't really believe it, but later on, after observing observing, you will understand maybe his description is correct. I remember that Pontsuk Rinpoche, because he went to many countries and many cities in United States and many other countries in other places. A few years ago, Kempo also visited those places and tried to visit all the cities and countries that Pontsuk Rinpoche had visited, and he was really surprised and said that, well, wherever I go, people would say that Pontsuk Rinpoche has visited this city. Wow, you've all been to so many places. Similarly, from the worldly sense, because there are people who would not believe in the things that the Buddha says, and they need to hear some confirmation from the others. Similarly, over here, the Bodhisattvas reconfirmed what the Buddha had stated. So they said that, world honored one, indeed, truly, as your holiness says, when we passed Buddha lands in the east, which were as numerous as sands of 60 Ganges rivers, and reverently made obeisance to the Buddhas there, we saw Holy Shakyamuni Buddha appearing in every world. So in all those worlds, in the Buddha lands, they saw Shakyamuni Buddha. They saw Shakyamuni Buddhas there turning the Dharma wheel. We then visited everywhere in worlds in the 10 directions for 7 days. For example, they went to the worlds in the west, in the east, in the north, in the south, and on the top, and in the low worlds. So in the worlds of the 10 directions for 7 days, with their miraculous penetration, they've traveled for 7 days. Now, because of the pandemic, we can't really travel. Otherwise, if you have money, if you have your passport, you can pretty much travel to everywhere in this world. In the past, I heard that with some passports, people can travel to over 100 countries. I was really in awe of that, and I really wanted to have that too. I don't necessarily want to travel, but I really think that it would be really wonderful to give teachings of the Dharma in different countries and to make connections with the sentient beings all over the world with the Dharma. Maybe in my later parts of my life, I really want to travel around the world. I'm not sure how it's going to be later on. If I can go, that's good. If I can't, I think the places I've traveled in the past few years were really good. I've traveled in the 90s for a few times, and all the way through 2013 to 2018, I've visited many places, and those were good too. If I have opportunities later, I still want to travel. According to the Tibetan old saying, it says that if you can travel 1 or 2 times, if things could happen for 1 or 2 times, it will definitely happen to the 3rd time. So I think at least I should have another opportunity. I've traveled for 2 times before, and later on, if I would have such an opportunity, I can make connections to the beings with the Dharma. That would be very meaningful. Anyhow, I am sidetracked. Now let's continue with the sutra. The Bodhisattvas then said to the Buddha, saying that we then visited everywhere in worlds in the 10 directions for 7 days, and still saw only Shakyamuni Buddha appearing in each world. So they saw Shakyamuni Buddha turning the wheel of Dharma in various worlds. And they said that we only saw Shakyamuni Buddha appearing in each world, but not other Buddhas. This is quite inconceivable, isn't it?
也是不可思议吧，就是那个我们可
Well,
能
the
看到
way
的是这
we
个释迦牟尼佛的
perceive
这个眷属的话，只是这个
the
印
ones
度
who
的
are
或
the
者是这
retinues
是我
of
说不世界的一
Shakyamuni
些
Buddha
部分，
are the
但实际
ones,
上的话呢，
for
就是这
example,
种
from
佛的
India,
境
or
界
at
是
least
真的
resides
是
in
不
the
可
Saha
思议
world.
的。
But the
这
Buddha's
大乘的
enlightenment
这个
and
大乘佛教里面
his
所讲到的佛的境界不可
realization
思议，
is
就大家都
inconceivable.
就应该清楚。甚至我们这个增益阿含
According
经的观
to
点的话呢，也是这样
Ikotara
的。增益阿含
Agama,
经当中说是
it
佛陀有一
states
次跟
that
阿难
once
就
the
说是
Buddha
你
said
这个
to
如来的
Ananda,
这种弟子呢，就是认不认
he
为
said
是
that
这个上的，
Ananda,
就是
do
你
you
摸
think
摸足什么
that
这个
the
摸足
Buddha
入
or
手
the
观，你不要
Tathagata
这样
only
想。
has such a
东
few
方这个弟
number
子的
of
话呢，有无
disciples?
数千亿，
Do
然后
not
弟子
think
呢
in
就
such a
无所
way,
千亿。
because there
所
are
以呢，就是
disciples
佛
who
告诉这
resides
个
in
阿
the
难呐，就是
East,
你应该当见此
and
意，就是
they
你应该
number
要建
in
立你新的这种
thousands
这种
of
这个
billions.
认识吧。
The
就是你
numbers of
你觉得是
disciples
就
who
是我们这
resides
个佛的这个插
in the
插
south
图呢，就是
also
仅仅是这个插图，
are
而佛
numbered
的这个眷属的话
of
呢，就是仅仅是
thousands
这
of
一点，其
billions.
实也并不是不
Therefore,
能这样
Ananda,
观的。
you
那
should
东方也
think
有
in
无数
such a
的这
way.
种这个
In fact,
这
you
种
should
眷
not
属
think that
弟
the
子，
Buddha's
南方也有无数的
Pure
眷属，
Land
同
is
样的这
only
个北
this
方、西
land.
方或者上
The
方、
Buddha's
下方都
retinue
有。
is just
所以
set number
我
of
们
them.
要
You cannot
建立
see
一
it
个
in
这
such a
样
way
的
because
系
there
统，
are
就这个
innumerable
其实很
numbers
重
of
要的。
retinues
我
and
们在座的
disciples
各位呢，就
in
是可
the
能是
east, in the
这个
north,
自
in
己
the
的性
south,
质，
and
如果是
in
特别
in
特
the
别狭
upper
隘的
world
话呢，
and lower
我们
world,
只能
in
这个
all
借
those
助就
place,
是
all those
以自己
places.
分别呢，就
All
是
of us
非常
sitting
适合
here,
的，就
if you
是
have
一
a
点
very
点的这
narrow
个知识
mind,
啊，就
you
比如
can
说
probably
你科学
only
一窍不通的人的话呢，
accept
凡是所有
knowledge
的这些
that
这个
fits
科
into
学
your
的这些
own,
理念
your
的话呢，
personal
就是对你来讲
understanding,
是
which
就
is
是
very
就
limited.
没有这方
For
面的这种
example,
意识
if you
啊。
do not
你对科
understand
学一
science at
窍
all,
不通
then
的
even if
这
I
种
speak
人的
all
话
the
呢，也
science
是
to
是
you,
同样的。
you will
如
not
果
be
你
able to
科学里
understand
面的
it.
就是部分的道理懂得，
Similarly,
其他的不
if
懂的
you
话呢，
only
你的智慧
understand
呢也界
Dharma,
限
but you
在
do not
界限在
understand
这
anything
这个
else,
范围
then
当中。
your
那
wisdom
同
is
样的，我们的
limited
有些
only
人
in
是
that
对
way.
世间知识
Therefore,
在
we
什么
should
都懂的话呢，
understand, or
那
at
心
least
很
we should
开阔，就
acquire
是对他的
knowledge
信呢，就是
both
确实是
from
这个
the
就是
transmundane
海纳百
aspect and the
川，就是就
mundane
什么都可
world
以
as
这个
well.
容纳，就
Our
是接
mind
受
should be
啊，就这
open
是
and we
很
should
重
be
要的。
able
所以呢，
to
他这里
accept
就是
all
说是啊，就
knowledges
是
and
除
we
了释
should
迦
be
牟尼
able
佛
to
以外，
be
没有
very
见到其他的佛。
inclusive.
然后他们整个这个边有的这
Over
个
here
过
it
程
says
当
that
中的
other
话
than
呢，都没
Shakyamuni
有见
Buddha,
到。后来呢，
the
就
Bodhisattvas
是
did
这
not
个
see any other
就还
Buddhas.
归本土啊，就是
Throughout
觉得是
their
别的地方也没
journeying
有，就是那这
to
样
the
的话
other
回到我们
worlds,
娑
they
婆
did
世界
not
去，
see
叫
any
牟
other
尼佛就是
Buddhas.
我们这个世界的
After
人。然后呢，就是
returning
他们就开始
to
这个
this
听说正
land,
法，就是听说正法。
they
所以
feel
说
that
这个
there
呢，
is
就是大家应该
after
也应
they
该
returned
记
to
清
this
楚
land,
的。
that
以
is the
前那
Saha
个好
world,
像是在
they
那个
started to
道宣
receive
女
the
士的有一个
teachings
干
from the
部啊，
Buddha.
就是道宣女士的有一个
Master
干部，
Daoxuan
它里
from
面呢就
Tang
是
Dynasty, he
当时那
composed a
个他
book
不是
of
道宣女
his
士是经常
record
跟
of
这个
his
天人就是沟通啊，就是
experiences,
就天人
of
对他
his
做饭啊，
insights
就
of
问问
practice.
答，就是有很多的这
As
种
you
故
probably
事嘛，
know,
就是有意
Master
思的是他跟
Daoxuan
天人呢，
often
就是说是我们这个本
communicate
是释
with
迦牟尼
the
佛的话
celestial
呢，
beings,
这个
and
出世
there
的
were
时间是
stories
有各所
recorded
分
of
野的，
how
有些
celestial
说
beings
是这
would
个下朝的时候
would offer him
上朝的
meals
思维，
and
有
all
些
of
说
those
是
kind
诸
of
朝的
stories.
思
There
维，
was once
有
that
些说是
he
这个卢
asked
庄啊，
the
就卢庄是
celestial
可能
beings,
跟
saying
占
that,
卜时期
well,
吧，就
there are
这样的
many
适合。那到
different
底呢，就是
ideas
是
about
是
when
是什么？就
Shakyamuni
是他
Buddha
这
was
个问
born.
天人，然后
Some said that he
天人呢
was
就是
born
回答，就
in
是说
the
是
Shang
都
dynasty,
是
some said
对
in
的
Zhou
啊，就是
dynasty,
你
and
上朝也可以，退朝
some
也可以，
said
退休
that
也可以。
he was
不在我们
born
平时这个
around the
书说
spring
的话呢，就
autumn
是有这个不同
period.
时期出世
So
的。就
when
原因是什
exactly
么
did
呢？
the
就是
Buddha
原因呢，就是
born?
因为
And the
这个
celestial being answered
这个
that
众生的这
all
种
of
这个
those
因
are
呢和性性
correct.
不同
You
的
could
话
say
呢，
that he was
佛陀
born
呢，
during
就是
Shang
在
or
不同
during
的时
Zhou
代
or during the Spring-Autumn Dynasty. You can say that he was born in all different time periods. Why is that? It is because the sentient beings have different kinds of faith and different kinds of inclination with their habitual patterns. Therefore, the Buddha could be born in any time, in any era. Though the book is not a specific historical book, it is a book of personal insights or descriptions of his pure perception. But over here, in his book, he stated that the time, the thoughts, and all of the different tags that human beings make, all the different kinds of atmosphere, in fact, could be very different in front of different sentient beings, or because of the different aspiration of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, some of the so-called rules or regulations of or the norms would be broken, and then all of those norms can be broken. So we should have this kind of understanding, because the human beings do have their norms and do have the regulations and all the habitual patterns and all of that, which works for the majority of beings. But under special circumstances, under very special aspirations, all of those won't work. Therefore, I want to say that to the ones who have faith or without faith, you should understand in such a way. In this part of the sutra, the 21 bodhisattvas had already confirmed that the Buddha appeared in different worlds. Just like Master Tsongkhapa, also some said that he is taking rebirth and residing in Mount Wutai. Some said that he is in Tibet, and some said he is in Tushita heaven. So all these kinds of different manifestations, I think it would be difficult for us to accept right away, because in our mind we only understand that one time we can only have one dualistic thought. But the wisdom of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are vast and inconceivable. Similarly, the karma of sentient beings are inconceivable, and under all these kind of inconceivable causes and conditions, and when they're mature, inconceivable things can happen. And then at that time, the Buddha told Manjushri, the youth, now observe carefully. The wisdom of Tathagata is inconceivable, and the state of the Tathagata is also inconceivable. Such unequal state of the Tathagata Dharma, those fools say these words. Only Prajnaparamita is the Tathagata's action, the Bodhisattva's action, and the sweet nectar action. The Buddha then said that all of the wisdom and the insights and experience of Tathagata is so inconceivable, one could transform to many and many to one. The existent can be non-existent and none can be existent. On even one atom, there are innumerable numbers of atoms of pure land. So it is indeed very inconceivable. Some may say that in fact, we say that, while Buddha said this himself, is it really trustworthy? But the Buddha, he speaks the truth and only truth. And since the Buddha he stated this himself, as Buddhists, we can definitely have faith in trusting in that. Whether the other worldly beings would be able to believe it, well, if you have such question, you should look into the Sutra of the precious rain taught by the Buddha. There is a really good answer in there. In that sutra, it says that in this world, the sentient beings have very little faith and have a very inferior wisdom. Therefore, they would not be able to know the wisdom and the power as well as the merit of the Tathagata. Therefore, the Tathagata has to praise his own quality so that the sentient beings in this world would be able to understand. It is just like there are some really wonderful doctors, but people don't know that he's a good doctor. In order to benefit the patients, he would say that in this world, I am the best in practicing medicine. We nowadays met many doctors, and some some of the doctors, they are bluffing, and those doesn't count. But there are doctors who really want to cure other sentient beings, and they would tell them that in these days, my medical experiences are the best to heal you or to cure you. In order to liberate sentient, in order to benefit the patients, the doctors would say in such a way to propagate themselves or to advertise themselves in such a way. Just like nowadays there are some gurus, they would say that, well, you want to receive this dharma. If you really want to receive this dharma, I have the best oral transmission and I have the best realization of this. I'm very good at this. And that means that I am the best, therefore you should request this dharma from me. So some of the dharma teachers would exhibit in such a way to benefit the sentient beings, and it is not in contradictory with the worldly rules or worldly norms. Therefore, the Tathagata also says that my wisdom is inconceivable, my realization is inconceivable. So is it understandable now? Is it understandable why the Tathagata says that? I also wanted to address on this earlier as well. I wanted to say that there are people who do not understand the merits of the Tathagata, and they would even take the merits as the faults of the Tathagatas. And some of them, especially people who had never accumulated much merit in the previous lives, and once upon hearing the merits of the Tathagatas, they would generate lots of fear. There's a sutra where it says, the Tathagata's supreme merits are accumulated from the immeasurable kalpas. However, the sentient beings, because of the lack of merits, upon hearing the various merits of the Tathagatas, they generate great fear, especially for the ones who are not brave enough. In fact, knowing the Tathagata has such merits, we don't have to generate fear at all. But as previously said, that only the foolish ones think that there's only prajna paramita is called Tathagata, is the action of the Tathagata, is the action of bodhisattvas. This is not appropriate way of thinking. Anyhow, this part is a little bit different than the Tibetan version. And then the Buddha told Manjushri, saying that their words contradicts the Dharma. If you were to say that prajna paramita is only the action of Buddhas and bodhisattvas, but not of the ones who are mundane beings, this kind of action, this kind of prajna paramita action can be the actions of the Buddhas and bodhisattvas and mundane beings. Everyone can practice prajna paramita. Because every sentient being is different. Their capacities are different. Sometimes there are the beings who feel that a certain dharma is easier to practice or it's more fitting to them, and some feels that the other dharmas are more fitting to them. One shouldn't say that only Mahayana practitioners can practice prajna paramita and only Theravada practitioners can practice or study the Abhidharma. You shouldn't say it like that at all. And to continue, it says that acting without attachment is the bodhisattva's action. Acting without the view of a self and its belongings is the bodhisattva's action. So over here it refers to that without any kind of grasping, without grasping onto self or mind. And then acting with the understanding of emptiness is the bodhisattva's action. So the kind of understanding of the great emptiness, that is the understanding, that is the practice of prajna paramita, that is the practice of bodhisattva's action. Then he continued to say that Manjushri, such actions are the bodhisattva's action. The kind of action that is big-hearted, and it says that those learning to be bodhisattvas should accept and uphold it. So we should not slander the others. We should, in fact, embrace all kinds of actions. That is the kind of practice or action of bodhisattvas. If one were to have or embrace the wrong views, those are the fools. And you should know that they do not understand my Dharma. Manjushri, you and the other bodhisattvas, the other 20 bodhisattvas, should all guard and protect your bodies and mouth, your speech. So over here, the Buddha said that, well, though you are the bodhisattvas who traveled around, but you still have to be very careful. The Manjushri probably don't wear masks, right? It's hard to teach with the mask on. Let me try to take it off. I didn't even wear it when it was quite serious, when the pandemic was quite serious over here, so it's quite hot. So over here, the Buddha told Manjushri and the 20 bodhisattvas, saying that you should all protect or guard your own body and speech. Do not allow them to dissipate in bad ways. Do not violate any precepts. Fortify your minds and keep them from regressing. According to the Tibetan translation and the Dhammarakshas version, it also has the connotation of not generating any aggression. As you fully expound the Dharma. Fully expound the Dharma means that you have to expound the Dharma in the way that is well-rounded, that is perfectly, or not falling into any extremes or have any bias, because those would be of slandering the Dharma. Also, you should abide in the Dharma. You should not only pay lip service but not practice at all. According to the Agama Sutra, it says that one should protect one's body and speech as well as the mind, to guard oneself with such kind of care and knowing the limit. This is what is called as protecting and guarding oneself. So all the practitioners should protect oneself. It means that you should protect your body, speech, and mind, and wear masks. Those are called protecting. And the Buddha said to the Bodhisattva, saying that each one of you practitioners, you should protect your own body, speech, and mind, and do not retrogress with your fortified mind. Also, give teachings to the sentient beings. You have to fully expound it, but not rely on your biased mind or your biased dualistic thoughts. So that's how you should abide in. That's how you should practice. Also, on top of that, you should not only pay lip service but not practice at all, because that would be going towards the opposite direction of the correct Dharma. This is what is said in the Agama Sutra as well. And then the Buddha said that since I fully attain the unsurpassed Bodhi distant Samkhya kalpas ago, I have widely and skillfully pronounced the Dharma, enabling sentient beings to stay far away from the evil life journeys. In fact, the Buddha did not give the Dharma teachings only for a short period of time, but he had given the teachings to sentient beings with very very skillful means for lifetimes and for kalpas of times, so that the sentient beings can stay far away from the three lower realms and attain. Well, I have to take off my mask. It's more important to give the teachings, even if I get the coronavirus. I don't think you will be able to understand me with my mask on, so let me take it off. Now, this part, the following part, would be kind of scary or fearful. And the translation is a bit different than the Dhammarakshas version. The Buddha said to Manjushri, saying that if there are fools who malign the true Dharma, they have maligned both the Buddha and the Sangha. They have slandered the three jewels altogether if one had slandered the true Dharma. And then there's really no hope to attain liberation at all for such kind of person. Making a statement that the Dharma is correct and that Dharma is incorrect is called maligning the Dharma. If you were to say that this Dharma is good, but the other one is inferior, this is slandering the Dharma, maligning the Dharma. If you were to say that, oh, this Dharma is correct, but the other one is incorrect or inappropriate, if you were to say, for example, oh, Tantrayana teaching is very supreme, but the Sutrayana teaching and the Theravada teachings are inferior, they're not supreme, that is slandering the Dharma. If you were to say that the Tibetan Buddhism is correct, but Chinese Buddhism is wrong, or Pure Land Buddhism is correct, but Zen Buddhism is wrong, if you were to make any of those statements, that is considered as maligning the Dharma, that is slandering the Dharma. If you were to say that this is right, but the other one's wrong, then that is slandering the Dharma. It's very easy for us to do something like that, because whenever we, for example, engage in debate, we would say that, well, this view is right, that is, your view is wrong, my view is right, all of those is indeed wrong, is indeed slandering. Though we don't have many debates, maybe that's good. We create less, we can create less negative karma. Otherwise, many rights and wrongs are spoken of in debates. And if you were to make a statement that this Dharma is pronounced for bodhisattvas, but that Dharma is pronounced for voice hearers, it's called maligning the Dharma. For example, if you were to say that, oh, Shurangama Sutra is taught for the ones who have the capacity to become bodhisattvas, or if you were to say that the Agama Sutras are for the ones who have the capacity of voice hearers, that is maligning the Dharma as well. Why is that? Because we cannot jump to the conclusion that all sentient beings are of one particular capacity. That is incorrect. That is not appropriate. We should not generate such kind of dualistic thought. If you were to say that, for example, the Shurangama Sutra or Vimalakirti Sutra are taught mainly for the sentient beings with the capacity of Mahayana to receive the Mahayana teachings, and some of the teachings are mainly taught to the sentient beings who have the capacity to receive the Theravada traditions, Theravada teachings. That is correct. That is not slandering the Dharma. If you were to say that mainly taught to, if you were to say that, well, the Mahayana Dharma can only be studied by bodhisattvas, but not the others, you shouldn't say it like that. So just like when the Buddha was giving teachings of Mahayana teachings, lots of the Theravada practitioners who were listening and practicing as well. Similarly, when the Buddha was giving teachings of the Theravada teachings, lots of Mahayana bodhisattvas were also studying and practicing, such as Shukpati, who studied both Mahayana and Theravada, same as Shariputra and Madhgalyayana. All of these are taught in the Prajna Paramita Sutra, which is of the Mahayana tradition. So we shouldn't jump into conclusions of, oh, this is arhathood and that is Theravada only. We shouldn't do that at all. If you were to say that making a statement that these bodhisattva studies and those are not bodhisattva studies is called maligning the Dharma. Or if you were to make a statement that as the past Buddha is gone, the future Buddha has not yet arrived and the present Buddha is not staying, only I have required the Dharani Dharma is called maligning the Dharma. The Dharani over here is a total retention, is a kind of realization of practice. In the past, the practitioners usually would ask, have you attained the Dharani? Have you attained enlightenment? Some people would say that the past Buddha had already gone and the future Buddhas have not born and the present Buddha is no longer staying in this world because he had already passed into parinirvana. But I am the only one acquired the Dharani, that is maligning the Dharma. Over here, the translations are a little bit different. According to the Dhammarakshas version, it says that if the Buddha has not arrived yet, one cannot attain Dharani, and it is only when the Buddha arrives in this world you can attain Dharani. That is slandering Dharma. But according to the Tibetan version, it says that the Buddha has not yet arrived, but one claims to have already attained the Dharani. That is slandering Dharma. We can see that the Tibetan version is similar to this version that we're using over here, because you cannot say that if the past, future, and present Buddha are not are not here, but one can attend Dharani. That is slandering the Dharma, meaning that without the blessings and the teachings of without the blessings and the power of the Buddha, one cannot attain the Dharani of by himself, because without the Buddhas of the three times, even if one without the Buddhas of the three times, if one were to say that they can rely on completely himself to attain Dharani, that is slandering the Dharma. Just like there are people who said that I can attain this without my teacher, without relying on my teacher's blessings, that is slandering. And then, because of maligning the Dharma, their claim to have acquired the Dharani is an impure Dharma. So if you were to say that the Dharani or the realization is impure, if you were to say someone has not attained realization but pretend to have attained realization, then that is maligning the Dharma. If you were to say that, oh, so-and-so got the Dharani or have attained some realization, but that is impure Dharani, his realization is fake, is wrong, he doesn't have such realization, then that is maligning the Dharma. If a true Dharma master, they malign what a true Dharma master is cultivating. If you were to say that a true Dharma master whose practice is not good, or if you were to say that the other Dharma master can only pay lip service but does not engage in genuine practice, or saying something something that, oh, I think that Dharma teacher only enjoys all the leisure but doesn't really practice. All of these kind of comments are considered as maligning the Dharma. If you were to say that they further slander the Dharma master, saying that although he has intellectual understanding, his actions are inconsistent with his words. If you were to say that, oh, he doesn't practice well, but he teaches well, he talks well, he's very eloquent, that is also maligning the Dharma. They further slander the Dharma master, saying that his action violates the way or violates the path. Or if you were to say that he practiced or the Dharma teacher practiced well, but his action violates the way. For example, his practice or his action is not in accord with the right mindfulness, which contradicts with the correct Dharma, then that is considered as maligning the Dharma. They further slander the Dharma teacher, saying that his body does not observe the precepts. Nowadays, there are some lay practitioners or the monastics who are not who does not have any defilement in terms of their actions, but there are people who really likes gossiping, and they would create or start a gossip, especially with afflictions in their mind and with some agendas in their mind, and then create such kind of gossip. Such kind of action, such kind of slandering could lead to severe negative karma. Not only there are people who would slander the monastics, and there are people who would slander the lay practitioners. I recently heard someone told me that so-and-so is having an intimate relationship with another lay practitioner inside of the monastery. And then after investigation, there's no such thing at all. But when people created such kind of gossip, lots of things couldn't be cleared at all. We say that one should clear one's self just like bathing in the Yellow River, right? Why not the Yangtze River? Why the Yellow River? But Yellow River is yellow. You can't bathe and clarify, right? Not sure why. Anyhow, if someone who said something that violates the precepts, if someone really did something that violates the precepts, then the supervisor or the people over here who's in charge of all of these can dispel that person if that person really violated, of course. But if it is unfounded, if that person have not violated any of those precepts at all, it is only based on gossip. And if one were to make such comments towards the Dharma teacher's precepts, that is also slandering the Dharma. They further then slander the Dharma master, saying that his mind has no wisdom. According to the Tibetan version over here, it means that the person does not have, if one were to say the Dharma teacher does not have eloquence, doesn't express oneself very well, that is also maligning the Dharma. They further slander the Dharma teacher, saying that his intellect has no clear understanding. To say that the Dharma teacher cannot understand the Sutra teachings, cannot understand the teachings in the Sutras and Shastras, and cannot differentiate the different kinds of teachings. If one were to say that, oh, he's good at giving teachings of the stories, but he can't understand the profound Shastra, well, I'm really eloquent. On the other hand, I am really eloquent. I studied language when I was in university, and my teachers usually would praise me, saying that I'm very eloquent, I'm very good at public speaking, and so on and so forth. But the other Dharma teacher is not very good compared to me. Of course, the Dharma teacher doesn't necessarily refer to the Khenpos and Khenmos. All the people who give teachings would be in the category, would count in the category as the Dharma teacher. Therefore, we can see that our criticism, our opinion towards the others could easily lead to creating negative karma. So if you were to say that his speech is devoid of eloquence, I think there are teachers. In fact, in my past, I also slandered some Dharma teacher. At that time, I think a while ago, I listened to a teaching of a very famous Khenpo. I thought that this Khenpo should be really good. I've met him before as well. He came to see Pontsog Rinpoche, and he had a very good reputation. When I listened to the recording of his teaching, he said lots of filler words such as ah and then I told to the others, oh, this Dharma teacher's eloquence is not very this Dharma teacher does not express very well. That's what I said at the time. And later, after I studied this sutra, I was very scared. But, well, there's really nothing I can do at the point. Because I definitely made some severe mistakes. So I believe that we must all have made such mistakes. If we were to say that this teacher is good and the other one's not, and this teacher's language is not good, but the other one's language is okay, and so on and so forth, those are all maligning the Dharma. In the Tibetan version over here, behind each of the sentences, there's a short sentence saying that is called maligning the Dharma. So it is quite clear and definitely more creates more impact in our minds. If you were to say that their minds do not believe or accept the words spoken by the Tathagata, if you were to say that the Dharma teacher does not understand the Tathagata's teaching, or according to the Tibetan version's meaning, it means that if one were to say that only of the literal meaning of the Tathagata's teachings, but do not understand the profound meaning of the Tathagata. So it's kind of similar. So either you say that the Dharma teacher do not understand any of the teachings, or saying that, oh, the Dharma teacher is only repeating the words but do not understand the profound meaning of the Tathagata's teaching, that is also slandering the Dharma. They also say that this sutra is correct, this sutra is incorrect, this stanza is correct, this stanza is incorrect. For example, if one were to say that the Hinayana teaching is correct, but the Hinayana teaching is incorrect, but the Mahayana teaching is correct, the Pure Land teaching is correct, but the Zen teaching is incorrect. This Dharma Master's book is good, but the other one is not good, is incorrect. After listening to these, do you feel fearful now? Especially for those people who had made lots of comments of the Dharma and Dharma teachers. Can you still fall asleep tonight? Anyhow, over here says this stanza is correct and this stanza is incorrect. According to the Tibetan version, the stanzas are the stanzas from sutras. Sometimes the stanzas could have some contradicting words at first glance. For example, sometimes in the stanzas it says that it is existent and sometimes empty. And if you were to find all those contradictive places and then that is called maligning the Dharma as well. If you were to say that this Dharma is credible and this Dharma is not credible, if you were to say that the teaching taught by Nagarjuna is credible, but the teachings taught by Vasubandhu is incredible, or the dharmas that's taught by Theravada are not credible, but the teachings of Tibetan Buddhism are credible, that is also maligning the Dharma. They wrongly rebuke what is explained correctly. According to the Tibetan version, it says that when seeing the ones who's giving the teaching, but talking about the things that's other than the Dharma. For example, when I'm giving the Mahayana Sutra of Mahayana Vaipulya Sutra of total retention, but then people started to talk about politics and talk about Trump and Biden, that is slandering the Dharma as well. That's quite scary, isn't it? Anyhow, I'm saying this is because I want you to be clear.
但凡夫人的这种如意不可信，就是不知道就是这个能不能成亲呢？就是说是兼正说者这个兼到正说者呢，就是妄作议论，或者是就看到那个将近。
Sometimes I would express or use those examples to clarify, but. Anyhow, this is just based on my dualistic mind, my dualistic thoughts. And over here, it also means that if one were to rely on the dualistic mind of oneself, but not accepting the true Dharma teachings, if you were to say that this should be explained in this way, but it shouldn't be explained in the other way. Without any evidence, if you were to if you were to directly speak out of your dualistic mind, and that is slandering the Dharma as well. For those who listen to the true Dharma, they create hindrances, making claims such as this is training, this is not training. For example, what it means is that we can practice the Pure Land practice, but we cannot practice the Tibetan Buddhism practice. We can practice Mahayana practice and paramitas. The paramitas of Mahayana, we cannot practice the practices of Theravada traditions. This is also called slandering the Dharma. If you were to say or making claims that this is an accomplishment, this is not an accomplishment. For example, if you were to say that the Tantrayana teaching is correct, but Sutrayana is incorrect. This teacher speaks the correct Dharma, the other teacher speaks the incorrect Dharma. This Dharma could lead you to accomplishment that is the rainbow body of Tantrayana, but Sutrayana could only lead you to the fruition of arhathood. It cannot lead you to true enlightenment. That is also maligning the Dharma. If you were to say that this is the right time, this is the wrong time, these statements are called maligning the Dharma. So if you were to say that this Dharma is taught at the right time, but the other one is at the wrong time, it's not the appropriate time to give the teaching. We should know that the teaching of the Buddha is fitting to the sentient being's capacity 2,500 years ago and still is fitting nowadays. But if you were to say that it is no longer fitting in the 21st century, that is slandering the Dharma. Dharma. I really hope that you can look into this teaching again and again and review it again and again. Do not just put your book away after, because we have to be very careful with the causes and differentiation. This is indeed very much connected to our suffering and happiness. If we do not practice well, then if we do not uphold this teaching very well, if we don't uphold or protect our karma very well, then in the future lifetimes we will endure lots of suffering and bring unhappiness to all sentient beings as well. And when we are studying, we should look at the past great masters during their study and propagation of Dharma. I think we should try to study it first so that people won't create such kind of negative deed. Even if after you created negative deeds, you should generate this mind of embarrassment and know your limit, and then try to confess as soon as possible and as much as possible. And all of the previously said negative karmas are very easy to carry out in our actions, so we have to guard our actions. The translations of Dharmaraksha as well as the other translations, I really hope that you can compare and try to study it. So I think the rest can be finished in the next class, and let's stop it over here.
Sonam doi tamche zubanya tomna ni be jana pashe jerga na ji ran hon chubai chubum sonen rowa